Hi guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to touch on reselling and how is vintage clothing reselling a viable business in 2024. So a lot of you guys have been asking, specifically in the communities, how is this a viable business and how can I make money from it? Not just why, but also how. So over the next few weeks, I'm going to do a little series on how to start a vintage reselling company. This is just going to be a snippet of what's inside the community because I don't want to give away too much, because we are teaching people how to start a reselling business this year in our reselling community, which is on school. So if you do want to join or you have any questions, then obviously just message me on Instagram, and the link to join is in the description anyway. It's going to be a great investment if you guys are looking to start a company and take it seriously, whether you're already doing it or you want to do it, because it's for all abilities and all stages of your reselling journey. I just want to touch on what is vintage reselling and why is it a viable business. So obviously, as you know, the vintage market is growing massive. The second-hand clothing industry is operating on a massive scale now. I think it's worth a couple $100 billion now at the moment. So ThreadUp predicts it to be worth $350 billion by 2027. And I studied the vintage clothing market in college, and it's expected to overtake the retail industry in 2030. So it's going to be larger than the retail market. And as we know, think about how many retail giants there are. You've got Zara, H&M, JD, you've got Pretty Little Thing, Boohoo, all these massive high street, or not high street, obviously online and high street retail stores. And there's going to be a gap in the market for that in vintage reselling, which means there is enough for everyone. And vintage reselling is simply, so reselling is obviously the business model of buying something for cheap and selling it for a profit. And obviously vintage reselling is buying vintage secondhand clothing from a wholesaler and flipping them for more on the likes of eBay, Vinted and Depop. So there's plenty of vintage wholesalers in the UK and all over the world. You know, the clothing cycle is insane. So obviously we buy clothes new from the retail giants, we then wear them, we then donate to them to charity, we either give them away, we put them into clothes banks, we throw them in the bin, at the tip, at the skip, whatever, and eventually it all ends up back into these big warehouses there. They all get sorted through, and then you have wholesalers will come over, buy from these rag houses or whatever you like to call them. You know, they're all over the UK, they're in Pakistan. So for example, some wholesalers will have a partnership with a rag house. They'll say, these are the categories that we want. They'll then sort through the items and put them into bales, and then obviously ship them over to the UK, which is where wholesalers will then sell them to us. So there's a big chain. Second question that I'm gonna answer is, how has the vintage reselling market evolved over the years and what are the current trends? So I think just before lockdown it started, or during lockdown it took off. That's when I started my business, and then that's when I started to see a lot of people going to charity shops and car boot sales, because I think they were able to operate, or they were starting to operate over lockdown. And I think it became quite popular as it was a very viable business model during lockdown. A lot of people were starting their own businesses, and obviously secondhand clothing, a lot of people were chucking out their clothing, getting rid of their wardrobe items. And obviously charity shops closed, which means there's a massive backlog of used clothing. But I mean, I chat to people now who've been doing it for like 10, 15 years onwards. So it's always been a thing. But I think although they were first to the game, there wasn't enough market there. Whereas now there's such a big market, I think there's enough for everyone. Because back then, yes, there was not many people reselling back then 10 years ago, but there wasn't much of a market for secondhand clothing. 10 years ago, maybe not many people would have understood the concept of secondhand clothing. Sustainable benefits of secondhand clothing is refraining things from going into landfill, and even the production of secondhand clothing, even the production of new clothing from the likes of Boohoo and Pretty Little Thing and Shein. I mean, first you've got obviously workers' wages and how unethical it is. We've obviously got the use of cheap textiles and toxic dyes. People have recognised that, and there's a massive shift now towards buying secondhand. I mean, Vinted is all over your Instagram and your YouTube and your TikTok ads. Depop, I mean, their ads aren't pushed as much, but it's a huge app. And even eBay, eBay, massive app, huge app. The charity shops have latched on, so I think the whole reselling from charity shop model is kind of decreasing now. It's more like, okay, it's about who you know now in terms of wholesalers. But I mean, you can still resell from charity shops. Maybe the things you resell are different. You can't just go in and buy Ralph Lauren now because people have latched onto that. I was going to be a bit smart with it. Yeah, I think that's kind of shifting. I think wholesalers are growing now. There's more people are buying from wholesale because people are taking it more seriously. And obviously current trends at the moment, we're going into summer now. So obviously we've got your jorts, we've got our vintage football shirts, which were quite big last year. Over winter, I'd say cargos are massive now, but they're going to be timeless. I think there's a difference between timeless and trends. Trends are something that up and down and they fluctuate. They aren't always popular, whereas timeless is consistently popular. Everyone wears them. Like, I think cargos have become timeless now, like flannel shirts. I think overshirts, Ralph Lauren shirts are going to do well this year. Like that old money style we've seen has become quite popular over the winter and end of last year. So I think this year now, though, that kind of style, like your linen trousers, your chinos, I'm going to buy into branded chinos, I think, this year, and Ralph Lauren shirts. So trends fluctuate quite a lot. When I first started reselling, it was still very much your Hype, your Supreme, your North Face puffers, your cargos. How do I source vintage items might be a question you guys are asking at home. So obviously I use wholesalers, like I mentioned. What are some effective strategies that I've used to find quality wholesalers? So obviously in my community page, I've got a huge list of wholesalers that I trust and know. So you're going to go ahead and use those. I've built those up over the years, and I'm just sharing that information with you guys now so that you guys can benefit from that. Because like I said, there's enough cake for everyone to eat. So I'm not going to gatekeep that. You can Google vintage wholesalers. They're going to come up on the UK. Obviously, for the UK, obviously there is a lot internationally that I don't know of, and a lot of people have found and discovered over the years. It might not even be via text. It might physically be going to that country and meeting wholesalers. I know there's a great seller. I love his content, Rick's Retro. He's got some plugs over in Italy that I would never imagine or never know of. But could be starting with just joining the community, speaking to me, seeing my wholesale list, and then you could get chatting to other people, and then people help you out. And before you know, you've been directed into this certain direction where you end up finding more suppliers, more wholesalers. What criteria should you also consider when selecting vintage items to resell? So I think get yourself clued up on grading. So you've got grade A, B, and C, and then you've got your D, E, and broken repair. So grade A is, you know, your good condition. It should be good condition with no marks, falls, stains, or holes. Grade B is going to be minor stains that should wash. C is when you're getting like your rips, your stains, your tears, stuff like that. And then obviously D and repairable. So get yourself clued up on that, guys. Always check people's grading boundaries. So on wholesale websites, they should have a grading boundary. So allow up to 20% B for grade A, allow up to 20% C grade in grade B. So make sure you're clued up on that, because what will happen is if you get stock and you start to see stains, you can't just go back and moan and complain. If it clearly stated, you can get up to 10-20% grade B. But obviously if it is less than that, or they don't state it, you have every right to go and contact them, obviously. That's always there to back you up, obviously. And lastly, I just want to touch on what challenges and obstacles are you going to encounter when starting a vintage reselling company, and how can you overcome them? Something that I struggled with, and that was just patience. Is if you have 10 items for sale, you're not going to sell all 10 items. I mean, I sell probably about 10 items a day, but I have over 2,000 items listed on Depop. So obviously if you scale that down, if you have 10 items, you can probably expect to sell like one item every 2 days. So you don't, or maybe every other day. So don't expect obviously to sell everything straight away. You're never going to sell everything as well. So obviously when you get delivery in, you need to make sure you're analysing your turnover time, your STR and your ROI, which is return on investment, and your sell-through rate. So if you get a box through of, say, 50 Carhartt Dickies trousers and they cost you 400 quid, after, say, 2 weeks, you should reassess, okay, I've sold 10 pairs, I've made back, say, 300 quid, which means I can expect in about a week's time to make my money back. That's where you want to be, whereas you don't want to be looking back, reassessing it and be like, oh my days, I've sold 5 pairs in 4 weeks. It's going to take me, I don't know, 3 or 4 months to make my money back. And even then, I'm into profit, which say you make £400 profit, you double your money. That means you've made £400 in the space of 4, 5, 6 months. So whereas then you could analyze another category, like, I don't know, Ralph Lauren t-shirts. So I've sold, you know, this many in this amount of time, and I've made this amount of profit, which means there's a better category for me to sell. So you've got to be very wise with what you put your time into, but also patient as well. So I was buying a lot of USA college pieces, and I just discovered they didn't really sell well for me. I wasn't making much money. So I was patient to start with, but I was patient for too long, to the point where I was like missing out on money. So I had to kind of sell them and get them gone, and then reinvest that into something that's going to make me more money. Reassessing then, what profit am I actually making on this category? Am I making more profit elsewhere? Because you got to prioritize your profit over pleasure. It's like, what's making you the most profit? Like, yes, pleasure, you got to make sure you're enjoying it, but you're going to enjoy it anyway. If this is what you believe you should be doing, it's something you enjoy, fashion is something you enjoy, you're going to enjoy it anyway. There's no doubt about that. Is you've got to prioritize your profit then after that. Whereas if you want to do it as a business and take it seriously, the enjoyment will come with it, but you need to prioritize your profit first as well, even down to what you buy. Like, I love selling football shirts, not hoodies, but if they're not making me profit, then I'm just going to sell what makes me more money. So there's plenty of categories out there. I mean, Vintage Wholesale Supply have over 360 categories on their website, so you've got plenty to choose from. I'm just using that as an example, obviously. So if you do want a discount code as well, just use my code ClothingView as always. But yeah, that's going to wrap it up for this video. I hope you guys have enjoyed. Any other questions, let me know. But I've got a huge content plan of reselling guides, and even down to like misconceptions, secrets, and interviewing resellers, stuff like that. All this is going to be in this upcoming series. But I hope you enjoyed that. I hope that gives you a better insight into reselling. Any questions, like I said, DM me, or if you do want to join the community, or if you have questions about that, feel free to fire them away. Please like, comment, and subscribe. It'd be much appreciated, and we'll see you in the next video.